Okay, everyone, welcome to OWASP London chapter meeting. We are live streaming on YouTube, and if you're not yet subscribed to OWASP London YouTube channel, please do subscribe. Tonight's meetup is sponsored by SemGrep, Root, and kindly hosted by Tessl. We are in Tessl's offices. I'm gonna kindly ask Alan to come on stage and say a few words about Tessl and what we're gonna do tonight.
Thanks.
I'm gonna stop sharing. We should be able to connect.
I hope this works.
Yeah, make sure you mute yourself from microphone, otherwise there will be echo.
Yeah, muted. All good.
Okay.
Do you mind if I
use this one?
pop that down there?
Yeah, we can swap.
Whoa. I'll hold this. Hello, everyone. My name's Alan. Welcome to our office here at Tessl. Are there any of you who've not been here before? Oh, wow, quite a lot. So there are some faces I recognize who've been here. We've had a few events this week. It's been a week. I'm so glad the last one ends with beer. This is Tessl. A few bits of admin that don't apply to those watching on YouTube. The Wi-Fi is on QR codes all over the place, and the bathrooms are past the lifts, left and right. You can't miss them. We have no plans for a fire alarm. Please don't try and burn the building down to test it. But if there is a fire alarm that goes off, follow us quietly and calmly out of the building, and we'll tell you where to go. This is the final event of the week and the final event of the day. So if you could help out by tidying up, because we've all got homes to go to afterwards, and it'd be really helpful if you could just put some rubbish in the bins. That'd be great. Thank you. You're not here to see me, so I'm not going to speak for a very long time. I'm actually standing in for my colleague Simon, who made these slides. If there's anything wrong, you could blame him. First of all, I want to introduce a website we have called AI Native Dev. Are any of you using AI to do software development, or a little bit? Cool. Okay. So on this website, which we run, there is a podcast, AI Native Dev podcast. There is articles, news, updates, and a landscape of tools that you can go on a voyage of discovery. You'll find it all at ainativedev.io. And I want to give it just a brief introduction to Tessl. We actually work here in that part of the building down there. And what we work on is making agents behave themselves, basically. And so I just want to give you a brief introduction to what we're all about. So you've probably used AI assistants, like the kind of thing that helps you a little bit here and there, like this, with, a little snippet of code, or maybe it gives you some autocorrect suggestions. These are great, but right now, it's all about agents, and agents do an awful lot more than just autocorrect and fill in the blank. They can, create a whole project for you, but they're not perfect. They can go a little bit off-piste, and there are some pitfalls with using these agents. I guess some of you may have used Claude Code, VS Code with Copilot and some other tools, ChatGPT. There's a lot of them. They all have similar pitfalls, and we're trying to resolve these problems. Some of the problems include you ask an agent to add a feature, and while adding that feature, it goes and stomps all over something else and breaks another part of your code base. That can happen. Maybe you've been having a very long conversation with an agent, and the first question you originally asked, your goal, has rolled off the top of its context memory, and he's completely forgotten, and it now starts going off in a completely different direction than you originally intended. Maybe it hallucinates. Maybe it starts making up names of software that doesn't actually exist. And that can be frustrating and difficult and, you know, time wasting and wasting money on tokens that, you know, could be better spent elsewhere. Maybe it gets a little bit mixed up with versions of things. So, you know, you're intending to install a particular library that's giving you features that you need for your application, and maybe the AI gets a little bit incorrect as to which version it needs, and you know, you don't get the features you need, and it can get a bit of a mess. Maybe the LLM was created a little while ago and doesn't know about new releases of the software, and so it isn't aware of new features. And maybe it just forgets everything because it's run out of memory. Who knows? And also, they can be a little bit patronizing sometimes, and you can get a little bit of, you know, yes, oh, you're right, yes, oh no, yes, I did that wrong, yes, you're totally right. Well, it'd be really nice if they didn't do that in the first place. It'd be really nice if we could make them more accurate, and more predictable, and have a bit of validation in there so we can check what they're doing is correct. And that's the kind of thought process we're working on at Tessl. Maybe make them a little bit less frustrating along the way. So, you know, you could be maintaining code, and the part of that process is knowing what that code does and how it works. And that could be that you want to change a feature, and by changing that feature, you break something else. And you might not have in your head, and the agent may not have in its head, all the context of what's required, all the necessary knock-on effects of you changing something in the code base. So what we work on are what the industry are calling specs, specifications. And these are just documents that the agent can consume that give it a bit of a guardrail and keep it pointing in the right direction. The industry have been calling them specs for a while. We call them tiles. So that's why Tessl, tiles, tessellation makes sense. So each one of these is a little snippet that can coerce the agent in the right direction. And I could give you a quick demo, actually, to illustrate this. This won't take long. So I made a little app. This uses Python on the back end, and it's a Node application on the front end. It's a web navigation app. So after this, you might want to go and find some beer. But what you'll notice is there's no words, there's nothing written in any language. It's all emoji all day, every day. And so if I want to go to this place for a beer, I click that and it finds me walking directions to get there. And the whole thing is just emoji. This was done for a little coding contest, and it's quite good fun. But it's all emoji. I quite like it. It works quite well. So some of the components in there, like I'm not a seasoned developer, some of the components in there I may not know comprehensively. Some of the libraries I may not know comprehensively. And so I might ask the agent for, you know, a user interface that has a map that moves around when the user like scrolls the screen. Now, you might know that that's Leaflet.js, but might not know how to implement it properly. And so we have a registry that contains a lot of those specifications, those tiles that give the agent that information. And so you can go to the Tessl registry, just go to tessl.io, and you can search for things within the registry. Like in, for example, here there's a whole bunch of tiles, and these tiles describe how your agent can utilize that library. So it's like documentation to keep the agent on Rails. And so my application, which is written in Node and has a whole bunch of libraries, if I use Tessl in that project, then Tessl can go and get that documentation and store it in a place that the agent can find it, and also coerce the agent to go and look there with other markdown files. Now, this is not perfect, and there are, you know, issues with agents loading far too much stuff into memory and the context blowing up. So this is still a work in progress, but it works really well for keeping the agent on track and not deviating from the happy path. And I can, in my project directory, where I have a package JSON. I can run Tessl install project dependencies, and it will squirrel around and find the project dependencies and go and get those specs for me. So I could individually pick, the spec for one of these libraries, or I could just say, yeah, get them all. And it will go and get documentation for all of those libraries that I'm using already in my project. Sweet. So now there's a whole load more documentation in here for some of the other libraries that I'm using. Now, there aren't specs or tiles for everything. This is a registry that we're anticipating people to contribute to so that we can expand the registry to cover all of the ecosystems. Currently, we cover a lot of Node, we cover Python and some others, but we haven't covered all the ecosystems. So we're working with developers, open source developers, to contribute to these tiles so that users of those tiles can keep their agents on track. That's the goal. If you would like to know more about this, come and find me, or go to tessl.io, or take a photo of the little QR code on the screens around the room. That's just a gentle introduction to what Tessl is all about, and I thought I'd give you that while I have a captive audience. Sorry. The idea is that we're going to fix all of these problems. It's an ambitious goal. We'll get there, but we're not quite there yet. I think that's everything I needed to say. Thank you. I'm not Simon, I'm Alan. I'll be lurking around, clearing up. I hope you have a wonderful evening here with Sam. And keep an eye on AInativeDev.io. There's an events page. So there are always events here, always. And so there's other AI-related topics that you might be interested in. They might be happening here. Thanks very much, and I hope you enjoy your evening. Thanks. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Alan. And thank you very much, Tessl, for hosting us here. And as Alan has said, this office is hosting a lot of AI-related meetups. So it's not just us. Okay. Let me just go back to my presentation. Right, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sam Stepanyan. I'm one of 3 OWASP London chapter leaders. We have 2 more chapter leaders, Andra and Sharif, who are unfortunately not here tonight. If you are going to put on social media anything about tonight's event, slides, or whatever you like, please remember to use our hashtag OWASP London and mention us. We're OWASP London. Quickly about our code of conduct, we are a very comfortable and welcoming community for everyone, so we want to keep it like this. So please be nice and respectful to each other. And if you have any issues, please come and talk to us. And we do have a code of conduct that you can follow online. Let me just allow Tanya to enter. Tanya, we're still in the intro mode, so probably you will. We're running approximately 10 minutes behind. So agenda for tonight, Sam, I'm going to do the introduction, tell you a bit of news about OWASP and what's happening in terms of all the conferences and projects. Then we're going to have Tanya joining us from Canada. She was supposed to be here in person, but unfortunately her training in London got cancelled. So she will be speaking remotely, and I can see she's joined us already. Followed by Q&A. Then we're going to have a quick break for more pizza and beer, and hopefully whatever is left over of not just pizza and beer, but also some stickers. And then we're going to have Sonya to talk about secure vibe coding and addressing security challenges of AI-generated code. Then we're going to have raffle. So we have 2 prizes for tonight. I will tell you how to register for the raffle. And then we're going to go to the pub for more drinks for those of you who want to stay. Right, by the show of hands, how many people are here for the first time at OWASP London meetups? Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much for finding us. I know some of the people I actually met at different meetups. If you want to make sure you don't miss the next one, please follow us. We have a webpage. We are on Twitter or X. We're on Facebook. We're on Meetup. We're in Eventbrite. We're on LinkedIn. We are on Blue Sky. Well, we are also on YouTube. So all the talks are recorded, and we're currently live streaming on YouTube as well. So please subscribe to make sure you don't miss talks, to make sure you don't miss our next event. Now, these are the prizes for tonight. We have 2 sponsors who kindly donated these prizes. Prize number 1 is Mario Kart Lego set, kindly donated by Sam Grapp. If you'd like to win this Mario Kart Lego, please register. And for those of you watching online, unfortunately, this is for in-person attendees only, because that Mario Kart set is here. And I can see some holding, but not yet. Obviously, well, the raffle will be at approximately 8:45 p.m. The second prize is kindly donated by Root.io, and that is a MetaQuest 3S VR headset. And if you could win this one as well, please do scan the QR code as well. Now, the QR codes are all around the room as well, and I will show these QR codes 5 minutes before the raffle as well. So if you forgot to enter, you can always do it a little bit later. Okay, but these are the wonderful prizes sponsored by Root and by SemGrab. So thank you very much for sponsoring us. I'm gonna play a short video about OWASP. Let's see if I can do it without getting extra echo.
OWASP is a nonprofit that stands for the Open Web Application Security Project. OWASP is a community of developers, technologists, and evangelists improving the security of software through tools and resources. OWASP has 100+ active projects, and new project applications are submitted weekly. Projects are open source and are built by our community of volunteers, people just like you. Community and networking. There are hundreds of local chapters worldwide and thousands of members. Meetings are free and open to everyone. They include training, talks, and networking opportunities. Education and training. OWASP hosts many events each year. They are a great way to improve your skills, build your professional network, and learn about new trends in the industry. One of the many ways you can get involved is to become a member. The membership benefits include discounts for events and trainings, your own OWASP email address and Google Workspace access, a vote in our OWASP Global Board elections. And recently, OWASP added a brand new member benefit, access to hands-on application security training through the OWASP Secure Flag Open Platform. Join us and become a member today.
I need to mute to make sure I'm not echoing. So that was a short intro to OWASP. As you can see on the map, OWASP is a big global community. We're in 71 countries all around the world, 250 meetup groups, and almost 180,000 attendees, like I said, members who come and attend our events. In the UK, we have chapters not just in London, but elsewhere. So if you are not from London and you took a train to come here, there might be a chapter closer to you. So please do attend their events as well. And if you have friends in these cities, please let them know about our other OWASP chapters. So very quickly about the benefits. Obviously, you've seen that you can get access to secure flag training if you become a member. That includes labs. And also code bashing secure coding training platform as well. So to get access to them, you need to become a member. Membership costs $50 a year for individuals and $20 a year for students. And we also have corporate supporter plans as well. To become a member, just go to owasp.org/join. Now, on top of all these benefits that we've seen, I have an extra benefit, which is this super rare and vintage OWASP member sticker that you can see on my laptop, because it uses the old OWASP logo. And we don't produce stickers like that anymore, but I have a secret stash of them. So if you become a member tonight and you show me the confirmation that you joined OWASP, as I mentioned, it's $50 a year. It's about 36, 37 pounds a year, which is not much money. But also you will get access to all these benefits, including training systems, and also you'll get a sticker from me. And also, if you become a member tonight, I also have a wireless charger from OWASP as well that I can provide. Before we go any further, a quick update on our chapter leader, Sharif. Unfortunately, he's been diagnosed with leukemia a few months ago, and OWASP is now running blood donation drives. As you can see from the photo of me with my hand with a plaster, I was at this place, donating blood in central London. It's actually just 2 minutes walk away from Oxford Street. Obviously, everyone who is affected by leukemia, they need blood transfusions, and the only people they can get from is from you volunteers, right? There's no way to make artificial blood. It's only coming from volunteers. So we urge everyone to donate blood, and it only takes 1 hour appointment, and you will save lots of lives if you do that. Thank you. Now, OWASP is a vendor-neutral community, but we are supported by commercial vendors. For lots of sponsors, it would be possible if they didn't help us out. This is the list of some of our global supporters. But here in London, we are very lucky because we have some chapter support as well. These are the organizations which specifically support OWASP London. You can see the logos, and if your organization would like to support us as well, please contact us to get your logo on the screen. We also have organizations who not only support us as a chapter by donating money, they also support us by providing the office space, like Tessl tonight. So we have Tessl, SemGrab, and Roop. So can we please give a huge round of applause to all our sponsors tonight? They paid for pizza and drinks, and obviously Tessl kindly provided us with this wonderful space. Now, a quick update on OWASP. Next year, we're going to turn 25 years old, 25 years of talking about SQL injection and all the vulnerabilities. And OWASP London chapter has been selected as one of 12 chapters who will be having parties next year. So watch this space. We're going to have a party next year celebrating 25 years of OWASP. One other thing that I do on top of the stickers, I also do this proof of attendance NFTs, which is kind of a digital sticker that you can obtain and get it in your digital wallet. This is, instead of having a certificate of attendance as a paper form, we're doing this NFT ones. And every month I take our OWASP WASP and I put it in different settings. For example, last time we had an event at Amazon offices, so it was outside of Amazon office. We had an event in the Shard, so we had the WASP outside of the Shard. This month, it's very cold and it's almost Christmas, so our poor WASPy is sat there watching television next to a Christmas tree, all wrapped up in a blanket. So you can get this NFT. Please just come and see me, and by scanning a QR code from my phone, you will be able to get it. The reason why this works, because the only way you can get this NFT is by being present here in person and by scanning the QR code from my phone. Now, next OWASP London chapter meetup is going to be on January 21st. Please do save the date. And one of the speakers is actually here. It's Rishi. And Rishi is going to present a talk that he presented in August at DEF CON Red Team Village. So it's going to be awesome. But tonight, Rishi will be taking some photos because his other hobby is photography. So he sat there at the back. So if anyone who doesn't want their photo taken, please go and talk to Rishi. But we will be in this venue Mix, which is kind of a nightclub slash cinema in Shoreditch, and it's 5 minutes walk away from Liverpool Street on 21st of January. Okay, another big thing happening, we're going to have a great and big OWASP Global AppSec Europe conference in Vienna, and that's happening in June. And if you would like to present a talk, if you're a speaker, call for papers is now open. So I'm looking at the speakers here. So please do register and submit your talk if you would like to present a talk. But the registration for the conference itself is not yet open, but for now we're looking for speakers. So if you want to present, please do. Now, OWASP is all about open source projects, and we have over 250 open source projects, and all of them are looking for contributions and volunteers. So please do join and not just consume them. Now, I have an update about one project, which seems to be our most popular project at the moment, because we're all talking about AI, and we're the office of a company called Tessl AI, and that is OWASP Gen AI Security Project. And OWASP Gen AI Security Project is going to have a huge OWASP Agentic Security Summit. It's going to be next week on Wednesday, 10th of December, right next to Black Hat Europe venue, right next to Excel. It's going to be at Crowd Plaza Hotel. If you would like to attend, please scan, and it starts at 2 p.m. So if you're attending Black Hat next week, it would be great if you can come and attend and learn about OWASP Agentic Top 10 and other OWASP Agentic AI initiatives. There will be guests from United States, from Israel, from Germany, and lots of other countries. Now, another big announcement. For the first time ever, we're going to have an official OWASP training days in London. Lots of people come to me and say, Sam, how do I get trained, right? How do I train my developers? If you're from a company who wants to train their developers on security, or you want to train your security engineers, now is your chance, because OWASP training is very, very good. We used to have training only at our global conferences, and for the first time, we're going to have a training without a conference. So it's going to be 3 days of training. It's going to happen at King's College, London Waterloo campus. And these are the training courses. We're going to have several one-day training courses, like just API security basics, security champions programs, privacy and AI, threat modeling in AI, building application security programs, web application security essentials, how to hack Android, iOS, and IoT apps, and also full stack pen testing training with 100% hands-on and lifetime lab access. So all these training courses, they are paid, but these courses are very competitively priced. So if you'd like to send your employees or yourselves, you can get trained. So the registration is now open. You can just Google for OWASP Training Days London and get registered. Now, tonight there's quite a few of you in the audience, so I will obviously run with a microphone to take questions, but you can also ask questions online. If you go to slido.com/OWASP and people watching us online, you can also ask questions using this system. Now, I'm going to see if Tanya, who is our first speaker, I believe she's joined us. Tanya is a best-selling author of 2 books, Alice and Bob Learn Application Security, and Alice and Bob Learn Secure Coding. She is known as She Hacks Purple because she does purple teaming. She is a world-renowned speaker on application security and best known for doing a lot of training. So unfortunately, she was supposed to be here in person, but her training in London got cancelled, so she's gonna present remotely. So let me stop sharing, and I hope we can see Tanya. Tanya, we can see you, and can you see us?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Hello, hello, wonderful. You can see us all here, and we're all very happy to see you. I'm going to make sure that you are a co-host, so you should be able to share your screen. So can you please try to share your screen, and so we can see your slides?
I think I'm sharing my screen.
And not yet. Try again.
Okay, I'm going to stop share and
just try again.
Yep.
How's
that?
Okay, yes, it's working. Everyone, can we please give a huge round of applause to Tanya, speaking directly from Canada.
Hi, everyone. Am I okay to start?
1 second. You are okay to start. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. I had the best laid plans. And then my training got canceled, and then my conference talk got canceled, and I was just like, wow, this trip's really not working out. So thank you for having me anyway. Today I want to talk about 30 tips for secure JavaScript. And there's actually more than 30, but 30 sounds really good in a talk title. So what are we going to talk about today? Writing better JavaScript, right? And I think secure JavaScript is better than insecure JavaScript. We're going to talk about what to do and what not to do. As a bonus, we're going to talk about some free tools. And at the end, I'm going to have a bunch of cheat sheets. So I'm going to have QR codes with cheat sheets for Vue.js, React, and JavaScript. Although there's a big React vulnerability this week, in case you haven't seen it. If you're using React for your backend, run, don't walk, and go make an update. And that's not in the cheat sheet because I haven't updated it yet. But anyway, these are some of the job descriptions I see on the internet. And for now, the mandatory about me slide. So this is the slide that presenters do to introduce themselves, to try to show you that we are competent and that maybe it's worth sitting through our talk. So I am a secure coding trainer at my own little tiny company. I have written 2 books, like Sam told you. I started in tech in 1997, which is quite a while ago. I founded some things. I'm founding a new company that is hopefully opening late February, early March. I'm an advisor to 2 startups, Smithy and Catalyst. And Smithy is out of the UK, so you might have heard of them. I'm a contributor to the OWASP Top 10 project, and I write for Stack Overflow, and I write for all sorts of different places. I'm a board member at the Forte Group, and hopefully you're like, she seems tolerable. I already came to the meetup. I might as well sit through this. So enough about me. Let's talk about JavaScript. JavaScript's the front end of the entire internet. It's what makes the internet responsive and beautiful. The internet was so lame before JavaScript with our BBSs and like static text and things taking 12 years to load. JavaScript is gorgeous and it makes everything amazing. It's wildly popular. I mean, obviously, so is the internet. But it's also riddled with cross-site scripting, which is an injection vulnerability that only happens in JavaScript. And there's other problems too. And I want all of us to write better, more secure JavaScript. So in case you missed the giant memo, which you probably didn't, because you are at an OWASP meetup, and usually I give this at dev meetups and dev conferences, secure coding matters now. Customers are not willing to tolerate wildly insecure things. Like, they will not put up with that anymore. My parents bought a smart TV and they said, guess what, Tanya? It's been pen tested. My parents, that's awesome. If in Canada, the stats are that if you're a small business and you have a cybersecurity incident, 50% of them go out of business. It's really serious now. Plausible deniability is just, it's not a thing. And so if you're at OWASP, you probably know we need to build and maintain user trust. We need to meet compliance standards. We must protect our users' data. We must prevent business disruption, all the things. And we do this by building safe applications. And with that, there's secure design and secure code, right? We design it securely and we implement it securely. And today I'm going to talk about implementation. And so without further ado, the actual talk. The best thing that we can do to help us automatically make way more secure code is to use a framework that automatically outputs and codes for us and offers tons of other super cool security features. And some good ones are React, Angular, and Vue.js. And I know I just told you there's a big vulnerability in React, but overall, it's still really a win. And the React team has handled it gracefully, quickly, and very professionally. They've been doing everything they can to get the word out. They fixed it like immediately. They're doing a really good job. When it outputs and code for us, we don't even have to think. It's great. It just does the magic. However, if we're going to use a framework, it's important that we avoid potentially dangerous functions like React's dangerously set inner HTML, Angular's bypass trust as function. And so I'm going to give you cheat sheets for Vue and React. I don't have one for Angular yet, I know. I just haven't got around to it at the end, and one for JavaScript as well. But basically get to know the do's and do nots for them if you're going to use them. There's so many super cool, awesome features, and a lot of them have to do with security, and they're so totally worth doing. The next one for JavaScript and every single other programming language is that we should follow a secure system development lifecycle. So this means, to me, every phase of the system development lifecycle that we do, there's one or more security activities. And so during design, you might do a threat model. During the requirements phase, there might be security requirements that you add to the project. You might do lots of different types of scanning on your code. You might have plugins that help you while you're coding in your IDE. You might take secure coding training. You might read books. You might go to really cool meetups called OWASP. When you do your design, you might have a meeting to analyze the security of the design. You might have a secure architecture review process. There's all sorts of things that you can do. But the key is doing it every single time. And that is basically, if you do a secure system development lifecycle, you will create significantly more secure software. And I know it seems like a lot of work up front, but it's a lot less work in the long run. Number 3, I want us to take cross-site scripting seriously. If we could perform input validation, output encoding, and use the content security policy header. Also, if we could set the HTTP only flag on our cookies as a bonus, that would be great. Cross-site scripting is the only attack that all it works on is JavaScript. That's it. TypeScript actually transpiles into JavaScript. And so still cross-site scripting JavaScript only. Let me dig a bit deeper here. So cross-site scripting, or XSS as we say for short, is when your app confuses user input or data for instructions. So it thinks this is my code. Oh, I should interpret this code. No problem. The browser's going to run that for you in a jiffy. And what happens is, well, injection, right? It's a form of injection. The reason why cross-site scripting has its own special name is because every other type of injection happens to us, the IT team. Database injection, us. Operating system injection, us. LDAP, us. Those are attacks against us, and then we have to handle it, and it sucks, don't get me wrong, and users can still get hurt. But cross-site scripting happens on the person, like the user's own computer, and their own browser attacks them directly. And I don't know how to explain it, but it makes me feel much more embarrassed and ashamed to have my customers attacked directly. And so it gets its own name because it's a very special type of injection, and because it used to be so prevalent. It used to be in 2/3 of all web apps, and it's gone down, down, down. It used to have its own item on the top list. It's not even on there anymore. It's woven back into injection now because it's happening so much less. And part of it is because we're doing such a better job. But I still need us to all take it seriously. So to repeat, input validation. So the input validation is, are we receiving what we're supposed to be receiving? And maybe you need to accept special characters, and maybe you don't. But if you do, then either you sanitize them out, which is not what I do. I escape them. So escaping, basically you put a backslash in front, take away its superpowers. Then we do output encoding. And what that does is also take away superpowers. And it says, this is just text. It is only for display. That is all we shall do with it. And then on top of this, we use content security policy header, which is a security header that lets us list many things. It does many things. It's very powerful. But the biggest thing that people use it for the most often is to list all the external resources that we plan to use as part of our site, especially scripts. When you have cross-site scripting, a malicious actor first is like, do they have XSS? Great. How do I trigger it? Awesome. And then the first thing they do is they see if they can steal your session cookie. And after that, and if you have the HTTP only flag on your cookie, that's over. JavaScript can't access it. You're all good. And then the next thing they do is they try to call out on the internet to somewhere else and call a malicious script, because usually like the field that you're given has 50 characters or 250 characters or something like that, and that's not much code to do awful things. They want to do lots of bad stuff, so they call out somewhere else, and then content security policy is like, no. And so with this recipe we can do a lot better. So I'm going to stop talking about that for a few minutes. Okay, so we would like to avoid inline scripting, where we mash our JavaScript and our HTML together in a big mess. We used to do that back in the day, but now we have separate files. If we do that, then we can add our JavaScript files to our content security policy header, right? It's similar to inline SQL when we combine a whole bunch of things together and then we send it directly to the database to get executed. It's a mess. We don't want to do this. Now, if you must, so if you're building a new app, don't do it, period. Don't do it. It's not best practice. Don't do that. But if you're opening up an old app that's like 500 years old and you have to fix a bug in it, you probably don't have time to separate them and rebuild the app. That's not reasonable, right? You're like, I'm just supposed to fix this tiny bug. So what you should do is use quoted variables. What that says is what's inside of here is text. It is not code. It should be treated as data and it should not be interpreted. And I'm going to give you a bunch more examples of what's due for that specifically, but the key is text, and you explicitly show the JavaScript, hey, that's text. Just thought I'd tell you again. So number 5, we want to treat user input as something to display or save, but not something that we use to make key business decisions. If we didn't make so many business decisions based on user input, cross-site scripting would probably go away. If we could use this as like a rule or guideline, so we get something from the user and we try not to make a decision with it, or if we do, it's always against an allow list. And so user input, as a reminder, is anything that the user could have changed or touched. And so if you have a hidden field, that's like saying to malicious actors, go look here. If there's, parameters in the URL address, people are going to change them, right? So anything that the user could have got their little mitts on, that's user input. And that is something that we need to be quite careful about. That's how injection happens, yes. Okay, so going back to telling everyone text is text and making it extremely explicit to the interpreter, this is not code. Do not execute this or interpret this. We could use text content or create element rather than inner HTML or outer HTML. Those functions render stuff. Inner HTML and outer HTML render things. It's saying, go interpret this. So don't put stuff there that's from the user. Instead, use text content or create element. That would be safer because it says this is text. It specifies. New topic for a bit. So if we could use encode URI component and decode URI component as a matching pair, rather than escape or unescape, we would have less opportunities for cross-site scripting. So escape and unescape are older, and I believe that escape is actually deprecated by now. If we put a URL in there, it could potentially bypass the safety in there. When we do, we break it down by component, each piece of the URI. It's safer, it parses better, and attacks don't get through as often. There are all sorts of types of attacks happening against URLs all the time right now. And so by breaking it down piece by piece, we will be safer. Ideally, we would use create element and append child rather than using document.write, because document.write is dynamic. These functions, create element and append child, avoid inner HTML, and they use element properties, which are static rather than dynamic. So they'll use like text content or set attribute, and those are a lot safer. As a bonus, create element and append child also offers super fine-grained controls over the elements and the attributes and the event handling, and they work with more modern frameworks. Document.write is basically obsolete at this point. So if you see document.write in some old code, maybe you will change it. On top of that document.write, if you mess it up, it could potentially overwrite your whole page and just totally completely ruin your entire day. So we should avoid using it. We should not use unescaped HTML. So that is also, it's not standard JavaScript. It's not a best practice. It's not something we're supposed to be using anymore. It doesn't decode things quite right. And what it means is it could allow dangerous characters in by accident, which could potentially lead to cross-site scripting and other attacks. And so if instead we could use the he library or use Lodash, those are a lot safer. Honestly, unescaped HTML can also be confused with unescaped, which is deprecated and also bad and something else we're not supposed to use. So if we could not use that, that would be awesome. And this is going to be on the cheat sheet at the end. So again, back to decode and encode URI component. If we could do that rather than just the plain decode and encode URI, again, it's safer. So why is it safer? URI component is any part that lies between the separators. Every single part of the URL is a different component. The separators are encoded also because they are part of the text and they're not considered special characters. Each component also is capable of decoding more characters, including special characters that we may want to use. When we use the decode URI component function instead, it prevents incorrect parsing, which sometimes results in cross-site scripting. If we decide we want to use decode URI or encode URI, we should only do it if we know we have a complete URI that we are certain is complete and that we have validated manually ourselves in other ways. So basically, if we're willing to do a lot of extra work. So if I were you, I would skip it and just use the one with component instead. 11. We want to make sure to URL encode data before we pass it to the CSS URL method. So CSS is not a programming language. It's not its job to encode things and program for you. It makes things pretty. Its job, it's like makeup. It's not functional, it's just decoration. And so sometimes developers will send URLs there and think, oh, it's going to parse it and encode it for me and handle it for me. No, it's not. It's not smart. It's not going to do it for you. It will treat it as a literal URL or file path and just go on and do it. So it's not CSS is not a programming language. And so we need to not try to make it do that work for us. So if we could remember this one thing with CSS. Okay, so when we are in the DOM, which is the execution context, we need to do double encoding. We need to URL encode, and then we need to JavaScript encode. Yeah, we have to do it twice. And yes, it's gonna suck. If we are using user-supplied data, we need to be extra careful with anything, like with a URL that we are gonna put into the DOM. I mean, ideally, we could just not put URLs in the DOM. Okay, 13. We would like to take away the superpowers between the script tags. So if we are doing inline scripting, which obviously we're not building new apps that way anymore, but when we're opening up an old app and we're fixing bugs, we want to use something like text content assignment property to set the text or the string content. So we're making it very specific. We're taking away the superpowers that it might have to ensure it's not interpreted. And so as an example, we would say, whatever your element is, .text content, and then you just whatever it is that you want in there. That takes away its power. Because we've said this is text, this is text, that's all it is. We've made it explicit. Whenever things are implicit or implied, and we're trying to let the DOM or JavaScript itself figure it out, that's where mistakes happen. We never want ambiguity in computer science. Okay, so number 14, specify text as text. So especially when the text is from the user, because quite often, like when we're setting these things, it's from a variable, and it's a variable because it could have been changed, and who could it have been changed by? From an API we called, stuff we got from some database somewhere, from a user. And so it's potentially untrustworthy. And so when the text is from a user, if we use inner text or text content instead of inner HTML, again, we're not letting the DOM decide for us. We're being extremely clear of exactly what we want with our instructions. It's always specific that it's text because the DOM, it can make mistakes. 15, when setting element.setAttribute, we want to use safe static attributes. So here's a whole bunch of good ones. All of these don't change. So if you put something from a user in there, which obviously you should have validated first, right? Because that's what we do. We validate our input. And if we have to accept special characters, we sanitize or escape it. And then we put things in there. But these are safe. They're static. They're not going to change. But ones that are dynamic, like on click and on blur, That's where cross-site scripting loves to hang out. Guess where else it likes to hang out? More unsafe attributes, event handlers, on-click, on-change, on-mouseover, etc. Something's happening. Form controller values, like selected, disabled, read-only, href, source, action form, and even Boolean flags. Basically, if they are there, then they're considered true, even if you mark them as false, which is confusing. And basically, malicious actors have used that to cause cross-site scripting. And so we don't want to put user input into any of these. So when we're making bad choices, and by that I mean doing inline JavaScript, because we've discussed how we don't do that anymore on new apps. If we're going to use JSON, we need to say explicitly that we're using JSON. So we verify the content type header is set correctly, and this helps prevent cross-site scripting. We don't let it guess. Whenever we leave things ambiguous, things get upset. And so it's important we say it's application/JSON to make clear that that's what we're doing. Number 17. Variables, and by that I mean user data, go into the properties of cascading style sheets, not into the contexts, right? Contexts could be interpreted, but values are displayed. So for instance, property is this. If we put things into the properties, those are static, and then life is safer. We should turn on strict mode. That is all. Any language that has strict mode, we should turn it on. It enforces stricter parsing, error handling. It prevents accidental global variables. It blocks the this function, which binds to global variables and just makes a mess out of static analysis. It prevents us from deleting undeletable properties for objects. It helps prevent attackers from trying to mess with our objects. There's all sorts of reasons that strict mode is good, and we should turn it on. If any language has strict mode, we should do it. We're security folks, of course we're strict. 19, we would like to avoid HTTP parameter pollution, which is such a mouthful. So let's say HPP for short. So in Express, there's an HPP module, but there's also HPP middleware that you could use. But basically, this is where an attacker sends multiple parameters with the same name in a rec.query or a rec.body, but the values that they've added, of course, are malicious. We could also write our own code to defend against this by doing input validation on the server side with allow lists, sanitization. If our framework has configuration for HPP protections, we could do that. Libraries we could use would be Express Validator, Joy, or Zod. So there's a lot of ways that you can defend against this. I've actually had multiple customers have me make special lessons just for this, because this is an attack that is happening, especially against people that make platforms. So be aware. 20, consider using the library DOM Purify. It protects against DOM-based cross-site scripting, and it basically does sanitization. It is quite nifty and highly recommended. And it's going to be on my list of cool tools at the end. If we could use sub-resource integrity, so basically when we're going to load external resources like scripts, if we want to do it securely, like we're going to use content security policy header, but also if we use the sub-resource integrity check when we include them in our code to validate that it's what we think it is. So even if it's from a content delivery network, we should check it. It's a feature that's built into modern web browsers, and they use a cryptographic hash to verify the integrity of the external script. If you are, reading the news and watching blogs and seeing social media, there's all sorts of attacks against integrity right now that are targeting developers more and more. And so this is a good thing. As an additional layer of security, so this is not mandatory, this is more of a nice to have, you could minify, bundle, and then nonce your code. You can do this using Webpack, and basically this would be a small layer of obfuscation to try to make it just take longer for someone to get at things. It is not a defense on its own, it's only an additional layer for your consideration. We want to avoid cross-site request forgery. So cross-site request forgery is where an attacker gets the victim to click on a specially crafted link. The link assumes you're already logged in somewhere, like Amazon, like a place where you would be logged in a long time, and it sends a transaction to that site and tries to execute stuff. If you pass a token back and forth with every post, that malicious link won't have it, and then it can't get at you. Lots of the JavaScript frameworks will create the token for you, but you still have to check it on the back end. If you don't check it at the back end, then there's no protection happening from passing the token back and forth, right? So we need to make sure that you actually validate that it's there. Number 24, which is hidden behind the zebra. Ideally, we would use both a static analysis tool and a linter, and then fix the things we find. So basically, a static analysis tool, or SAST, Static Application Security Testing for the marketing people, it analyzes your code that your team wrote to see if there's vulnerabilities that it thinks it can find. And then a linter tests all sorts of other things. And sometimes linters also find security things, and sometimes SAST finds non-security things, and that's nice, right? But ideally, we would have quality and security both. So, dangerous functions. There be dragons. These are things that I'd really like you to avoid. So if we could avoid these functions and just like never, ever, ever use them, life would be grand. All of these render code. And so if we're going to put anything from a user in it, it's particularly dangerous. And why would we use them unless we're rendering something, right? And if we're rendering something, it's because we didn't already have it. And so generally these are used with user input or something that could have been modified by the user or something that comes from an API or some other place. And so if you find these, really strongly consider as to if you're using it, like if you need to use it. And then on top of that, also be very careful of what you put in there. Check it against an allow list, be very, very careful and test it thoroughly. 26, we should avoid using the with statement. So the with statement is weird. So it allows for a simplified access to object properties by establishing a default object scope. And while it can reduce code repetition, generally it's pretty darn discouraged. And by discouraged, I mean if you're in strict mode, it won't work because it causes a lot of confusion and it has negative impacts on code maintainability and performance. Now, that's like a developer reason to not use it. Now, a security nerd's reason to not use it is because it violates something called lexical scope, and it makes static analysis completely impossible. And so as a result, it's forbidden in strict mode. And so if you're already using strict mode, you won't be able to use this. But if you see the with statement somewhere, that you might be encountering a mess and you might want to declutter. We should avoid function constructors with a string argument. So if we're constructing something and we put like a string argument in there, what do you think is in the string argument? It's probably user input, right? That's probably why it's there, because you don't already know what goes in there. So be really careful with what you would be putting in there. If we're going to construct something with a string argument, think hard and long about what is in that string argument and what could be in that string argument and how it's changed, because there's some serious potential danger there. Set timeout and set interval. These functions don't have a lot of defenses in them. They're older, and we should not be putting user input in them. We should use these with caution. I don't think they're deprecated yet, but they've been found to be problematic in various ways. And so we'd want to be quite careful about using them. If we could avoid JavaScript methods that take code as string types. So that sounds bad, right? Because variables, why is it a variable? Because we're putting something in there. Where did the thing come from that we put in there, right? So set attribute, set timeout, set interval with the new function. Instead, if we could just set the attribute directly, that would be a lot safer, like we discussed in previous slides. Okay, so number 30. We should not put untrusted data into HTML rendering methods. So I know I discussed these earlier, but I thought I'd say it again because it's fun to not have cross-site scripting. And this is the what not to do. So I was like, I'll just repeat it. It'll be great. Also, you get a picture of a really cute leopard. So that's nice. So another type of injection, prototype injection. So JavaScript is a prototype-based language, which means we need to avoid problems with prototypes, including injection of prototypes. So basically, this is where an actor manipulates or overwrites the properties on a global object's prototype, and then it goes down into all the other objects below it with inheritance. That sounds pretty awful, right? So we do this, actually. So if an object doesn't have a property directly on it, the JavaScript looks up the prototype chain to the top, and if an attacker manages to change the original prototype, like everything below it is affected. And so how do we defend against this? So this is a little complicated, but we can do it. So we freeze the default object that everything inherits from. So you do an object.freeze. 2, we explicitly create objects that don't use prototyping. So these are or, not and. We use a map instead of an object. We could do that. Or we just avoid recursive merge functions altogether. So we don't do that. We just don't do any of it. It's really up to you what you decide you want to do, but you should be aware that if someone is able to inject something into the original prototype, it'll go all the way down the chain and it'll just be quite a disaster. Number 32, let's not mess with the same origin policy. Same origin policy protects one website from accessing data or resources from another unless we intentionally share with it. So we do not want to set the same value for document.domain in order to share the information between the two pages. Instead, we want to use something like window.postMessage, but we don't set it to star because we never set something to star that is meant to restrict, because then we've just ruined it, right? Same with if we set the document.domain to the same thing for 2 pages. Again, we've undone the protection of same origin policy. So what we want to do is basically make sure we check the origin and validate that whatever is in the message is okay before we use it. We don't want to set things to star that are meant to restrict. Oh, yeah, and we validate the message before we use it. I said that. Okay, so number 33, true validation happens on the back end. The front end validation, so in JavaScript, on the front end, if we want to do a bunch of validation to be fast and efficient and save time, that's cool. But the final decision always happens on the server where no one controls it but us. It happens on a trusted system. We should prefer private variables over global because they're a lot less likely to accidentally be accessed by external scripts. There's a lot of reasons that we should prefer private variables over global. It's like not doing everything as root. It's the idea of least privilege. So we should use private over global whenever possible. And now, some free tools for JavaScript. DOM Purify. So input sanitization, retire.js to check your JavaScript libraries, npm audit and yarn audit, same deal, checking your libraries, SemGrep Community Edition and HoroSec, and node.js scan, which will check your code and do static analysis things. Bearer, which will check for privacy things and also check your dependencies. DOM snitch. So we have a bunch of tools here. You might want to take a screenshot. It's totally up to you. This is included in the JavaScript cheat sheet. Basically, it's a summary of the whole talk. But for you, if you want a picture now, you can have it. So conclusion. So we learned a whole bunch of insecure functions. We talked about safer alternatives and safer ways to do things. We talked a lot about how to avoid cross-site scripting and how it sucks and we don't want it. We covered some free tools, and we all agree that secure code matters. And so now I have some resources for you in a bright yellow screen. So I have a petition, but I don't think any of you are from Canada, so you probably don't need to see it. So you could probably just skip this one. But my books, I wrote books. Me and my mom agree they're pretty good. If you like this talk, you might like these books. I have a free newsletter that comes out every month where I give away cheat sheets and memes and articles and videos and everything. The cheat sheet is, or the newsletter every month is free. Resources me. I do all sorts of things like this all the time. So if you liked this, there's basically endless content for you if you want it, because this is my job. And now treats. So I'm gonna leave this on for a bit. So this is the React cheat sheet, the JavaScript cheat sheet, and the Vue.js cheat sheet. And yes, they are gated, so you have to sign up for my newsletter. But if you like those, you'll like my newsletter, and you can always unsubscribe and I wouldn't know. But there's over 10,000 people subscribed who signed themselves up, so it's not that bad. So some of you may want this, and it's hard to see because you're also little if any of you are taking photos, but I thought I would leave this on for a second, and then I'm going to give you the presentation slides and take questions on the next one. And so now, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening. Are there any questions?
Wonderful. Let's first give a huge round of applause to Tanya. Right. Are there any questions? Yay. I see some hands.
Thank you very much. That was quite an incredible talk. Can you please explain why we should switch on strict mode all the time? Not just in JavaScript, but I noticed they feature quite a lot in other languages like Perl. Can you just explain once more time why we should put strict on?
Absolutely. It's a really good question. So strict mode means that nothing is left ambiguous in the language. It goes to the letter of the law. So for instance, in some languages, you don't have to declare a variable, you just start using it, and then the language guesses. If you have strict mode on, that's not going to work. It's going to force you to declare your variables. Most of the time, when we code like that, it works fine. But ambiguity is where most vulnerabilities lie. So some vulnerabilities are just like really obvious and that's how they happen. But a lot of vulnerabilities, especially the tricky ones, they lie in ambiguity. And so strict mode, if something's deprecated, you can't use it. It'll make sure that like areas where there might be ambiguity, it's not allowed. It makes you follow the letter of the law of the language. It usually makes you use the most recent version of the language. So for instance, strict mode in Python will be like, you're doing Python 3. If you're trying to do Python 2, like you're being ridiculous. And so the idea is to hold you to a higher level of accountability. And as a result, then we tend to be more secure. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you. More questions? No, I have two questions for you, Tanya.
Okay.
Question number one, you talked about the React vulnerability, which is currently sweeping the world, right? Similar to Log4j. Do you know all the things that you talked about? Which one caused it?
Which one closed it?
Yeah, which one in React, the vulnerability? Why did it happen?
Oh,
do you
okay.
know?
Yeah,
Mhm.
so React, I made a video about it that I could share a link to you later. But basically, if you go to my YouTube, it's the first video right now. But so React is generally a front end thing. There is also a back end component, which I was previously unaware of. I've only had front end experiences with React. So the vulnerability is only if you have the back end installed. So RSC or React components. And so if you have those installed, there's an insecure deserialization inside of it. And so what happens is an attacker can put, a specially crafted thing into your URL or into your app, and that command goes back and it takes over the web server, just like Log4j. You don't need to be logged in. You don't need to be authenticated or have a user. you literally just go to the web page, and if they have the backend vulnerable component, it works. Now, originally, when I first saw the article from Wiz, it didn't. It specified like the RCS components, but it didn't say backend. And so at first I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be like, a million sites. But now that it's just backend, it's like less terrifying because that's unusual. But basically, if you have the default installation, which most of us do, you haven't like specialized and done a whole bunch of stuff, you have that problem. It also applies to next.js for people that are using those backend components with it. It doesn't apply to the web parts, and it doesn't apply if you're just only doing front end, which is the most common implementation of React. So that sucks.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks very much, Tanya. And the second question that I have you is AI related, because we are in the office of AI security company, right? With vibe coding, right? When AI is writing code for you and it's writing JavaScript, what is the most frequent security vulnerability do you see with AI writing JavaScript code?
So it's getting better all the time. When I make like programming classes, I do this thing called bad, better, best. And I ask the AI to just make an example. And previously, the bad example, like the example that it would give would automatically be bad. It would be vulnerable by default. And then I fix the one vulnerability in it that I'm talking about. And then for better, and then for best, I add like multiple layers of defense. But now recently, specifically like in the past 2 or 3 weeks, there's some defenses in there. So it's sucking less. And like the past like 2 months, I've been working exclusively in C and C++ because I have a big contract. So that's not JavaScript that I've been doing the past 2 months, but I've noticed like better code. However, I also like, if you're working with the same AI and it has memories, it knows what's acceptable to you, and I give it crap all the time. Um, and so it's more used to me and my prompts and the things that I want. And so part of it could be that. So I don't have statistics on what the most common vulnerability would be in JavaScript. It's probably cross-site scripting, but I'm not sure, unfortunately. Like I don't have any data on that. But
Well,
I'll
because the
make
one that I saw, Tanya, is the one that annoys me the most, because you talked about site resource integrity, right? I saw that it actually gets the integrity hash wrong. It hallucinates it instead of calculating it.
Oh, really? Seriously? I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. It gets a lot of the basics right, but it'll miss things. It also like doesn't always do the thing that you say. Like it's like, let's make a parameterized query, and then it's like, here's this. I'm like, that's inline SQL. What are you doing? And it'll be like, you're absolutely right. And I'm like, yeah, it's getting better, but I wouldn't use the word good.
Wonderful. Thank you very, very much, Tanya. Let's give her a huge round of applause. Even though you're not here with us in person, everyone can see you. We're on big screen, and thank you so much. It worked really, really, really well.
Thank you,
Thank
Sam.
you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, everyone, we're going to go into a 10-minute break, so help yourselves to more pizza and drinks. I'm saying the toilets are just outside, and we'll be back for Sonia's talk. Hey everyone, please start taking your seats. We're about to start the second talk. Testing, testing. I think this one is. We use the chicken. This is instead of the bell. That's rubber chicken. So you know it's time. I also have a bell. And again, if you need your hands free.
Oh, yeah.
Please take your seats, everyone. Weird one. You might come in with just to say something you know. Right, apologies, I had to go on. Tanya, you're not sharing, right? Everyone, allow me to introduce Sonya. Sonya is a well-known speaker in the DevSecOps community. She started lots of great initiatives, contributed to many projects, including women in cybersecurity, right? And she did a lot of stuff back in the day for London Pride, as I remember. One very interesting thing about Sonya, because she's a speaker at many cybersecurity conferences, is that why her talks appeal a lot, because she's very, very practical and she likes to give you practical advice. That's why everyone is enjoying her talks. So let's give Sonya a very warm welcome.
Yeah, this is why I'm not sure this.
Yes.
That works.
Yeah.
Cool. Welcome, everyone. I'm just going to remove this Zoom thing. Yep. Welcome everyone to this securing vibe coding session addressing the security challenges of AI-generated codes. So we do have quite a packed agenda today. There's a lot to cover because, as you can imagine, it's quite interesting topic. So I'll go through an introduction of what is vibe coding for those of you who are not familiar with this concept. We'll also have a look at the threat landscape. I'll also go through a little bit of a secure by design playbook. We'll have a look at some human and organizational factors, and I'll close with some resources. Cool. So as you can imagine, the new, well, for Collins Dictionary, the new words of the year 2025 is vibe coding. So this was quite an interesting fact, just to add this word to a dictionary for this year, and also show the trends as well. Some of you also might remember the first idea before vibe coding was a thing, potentially using GitHub Copilot. This was a good start. You could do function generation and also auto-completion. But also the other thing, the other side of the coin is that you could also see those kind of statistics. So we've seen that the code generated by GitHub Copilot generated vulnerable code 40% of the time. This was before vibe coding was a thing. So let's have a look at what is vibe coding, just an introduction. So you might be thinking, for some of you who are not familiar, what are you talking about? Vibe coding is just listening to chill music and having coffee. But do you know who actually coined the term vibe coding? Any idea who was the person who coined it? Anyone? Yep. So it was Andrej Karpathy. He did coin the term earlier this year in February. And this is how he's defining vibe coding. So there's a new kind of coding I call vibe coding. Well, are you fully given to the vibes, you embrace exponentials, you forget that the code even exists. The interesting thing is when he say, I accept all, always, I don't read the diffs anymore. So one day you usually get error message, just copy paste and just accept everything. It's usually good for throwaway weekend projects, usually mostly works. So this is how he's defining it. So this is what I'm getting from vibe coding. So if people are asking you how does the code work, it's like no idea, but just chilling while coding. That's the idea. So usually the workflow that you might be using when you're doing vibe coding is first you would describe what you like to achieve using natural language prompts. So this could be English or other languages. Then you'll have the large language model generating your statement of code or your application. Then the developer or the vibe coder will just copy paste if there's any errors and ask again the LLM to reply. So you'd have this loop to describe, generate, execute, and refine without knowing what you're actually doing. Just accept all. Why people love vibe coding? So there's a few reasons why they do love it. Maybe you have your reasons to love vibe coding. But usually what people said is a kind of democratized coding because it's easier if you want to create boilerplates or syntax. You can also create MVPs in hours and not weeks or months. So it's good if you want to do rapid prototyping and ideation. Also a good thing, well, it's defined as a robot doc on steroids. So LMs could be used to explain unfamiliar concepts, API, and it can be used as a learning tool as well. Some of the limitations, so I'm going to go through each of them, but this is just to have an overall picture of it. So starting with the context window restriction, so all of the AI models can only see a limited amount of information at once measured by tokens. We'll come back to the notion of token as well. Hallucinations, is probably one main that people are raising, of non-existent functions or packages, and there's also new interesting vulnerabilities based on that. The training cutoff dates often recommends outdated knowledge and deprecated practices. The quality of generated code, and maybe some of you already have vibe coded, can also agree with this one. Sometimes it's excellent and sometimes a little bit more problematic. And there's also complex enterprise application level where AI has a limited understanding of all of the components that you have within your code base. And this is what I'm actually calling the complexity ceiling. Just to go back to what Andrei Karpathy also tweeted here. So he realized that building web apps in 2025 is quite complicated because of all the components that you have within an app. So here just listing a few. So front-end, back-end, hosting, database, email, payments, background jobs, analytics, and all of that. He also said that it took him 3 hours to create and configure a database with a versatile application. So he does acknowledge and recognize that's a lot of configuration, plumbing, orchestration that takes a lot of time, as this is not covered by vibe coding as well. So also one thing, if you're pushing to production, mostly work is not enough. So there's also this thing. But usually vibe coding is good for what we call CRUD. So you might have a lot of this demonstration on X where you have examples of simple Twitter and Netflix website that looks great. This is because vibe coding is great on those kind of websites. The second observations that I have is usually LM's bias towards popular tech stack. And for those of you who vibe coded, you might have these kind of results. So you all know that LMs are trained on open source repos, tutorials, documentations available on the internet, and they're actually skewed towards popular stacks. So if you're using JavaScript, Python, Java, you'll get good results. But if you're using technology that's a little bit more niche, you would expect to do more manual scaffolding and reviews. Also, there's a thing to keep in mind is that what you're seeing in social media, the success is different from the reality. So usually on X, you would see viral demos. They'll only show the happy path and all of those applications working. Unfortunately, they're not showing everything around scalability issues, edge cases. Those are really things that trend on X. There's also a lot of horror stories. I'll share a few. And also, we're seeing more and more, for example, on GitHub, missing tests and documentations. So I'll start with the first part of a horror story. You might be familiar with this one because this one was trending on X. But this is not to shame the person who wrote this tweet. It's more to learn actually what did go wrong and what we could do to prevent that. So here you have someone who posted this. He doesn't have any technical background, but he wanted to build a SaaS using an AI native ID. So here in our case, this is Cursor. And here you can see he was a little bit pedantic with people not believing that you could build a SaaS with AI. So good for him. You can see that people are actually paying for the SaaS that he created. So that's good. But Act 2. Horror is starting. Someone is starting to find security vulnerabilities in my application, clearly with no good intentions. Here you can see that's a screenshot of a Firebase entry, where you can see that the person was not just saying, please don't vibe code.ai. Also, the person who wrote the tweet said that he just vibe coded his way out of cyber attack. I'd love to know how you can vibe code your way out of cyber attack, but cool. Then Act 3, guys, I'm under attack. Ever since I started to share how I built my SaaS using Cursor, random things are happening. And if you're a seasoned developer or a security practitioner, you know what is going on here. So maxed out usage on API keys, people bypassing the subscription, creating redundant stuff on DB. He said, as you know, I'm not technical, so it's also taking him longer than usual to figure out. Final act. Half the internet is trying to break my app just for sharing publicly a mistake I made, and he decided to shut down his application. Also, one interesting thing that potentially you've experienced during vibe coding is saying that Cursor just keeps breaking other parts of the code. So usually when you want to implement a feature, it might also change other parts of the code. So he's saying that, yeah, you were right. I shouldn't have deployed insecure code to production. But at the end, he actually recreated the application with a different stack. So let's have a look at the threat landscape. What are the dark side of AI coding? And here I'm mentioning vibe coding. So I'll change the vocab after. So a good starting point, if you're asking me, I would say the new OWASP top 10 LM for GenAI. That's a good starting point to have a good understanding of what are the different vulnerabilities that we're facing. Looking at this list, you might be familiar with a few of them in different contexts in the cybersecurity ecosystem: injection, sensitive information disclosure, supply chain. Those are not new things actually, but those are actually pended to AI vulnerabilities now. Aside of those, actually, if we're coming back to vibe coding, we realize that we're actually facing a lot of classic vulnerabilities, and those are the top 4 flows in AI codes. So we're having the classic hard-coded secrets, SQL injection, cursor scripting, and path traversal. Those are usually the kind of vulnerabilities that you're seeing when you're vibe coding. Just to go back to the secrets, that's a security researcher who scanned 2,000 vibe-coded websites, and half of it had security issues. So yes, keys everywhere, unfortunately. And I did the same, just having a look at the GitHub. And I was looking for specifically open AI API keys. It only took me less than 5 minutes to actually find a few of them. I don't know if they're still valid or not, but anyways, they've been pushed on public repos, as you can see with the dot environment, because potentially they haven't included on the GitHub file, gitignore file, sorry. So yeah, these are just good examples of secrets on public repos. So we've been talking about classic vulnerabilities. What about new vulnerabilities, specifically for AI? So there's a new one called slop squatting. Anyone familiar with slop squatting here? Heard? Yeah. So for those of you who are not aware, slop squatting, this is when a large language model will hallucinate a non-existent package name, and a bad actor will register it maliciously. So it's kind of the AI brother of typo squatting. Typo squatting is just when you do npm install React, instead of 1e, you type 2e, so you're downloading a malicious package. So this was what is happening. So on the left side, you have the malicious user who's prompting a large language model. So let's say Gemini, Claude, whatever LM you're using. It will generate code and it will hallucinate a package. So in this case, it's package X. So the malicious user will check on the registry if this package exists, and it'll take the opportunity to actually publish this package with malicious code inside. On the other side, on the right side, you can see the normal user. This could be me, this could be you. Also prompting the LM to generate code, again, with this hallucinated package, but which now exists, unfortunately, on the registry. And when it will query the package, it will unfortunately install a malicious package in the case. So this is what is slop squatting. We're also having some a security researcher actually did the same as a proof of concept. So he actually prompted an LM, and the LM come back with this Hugging Face dash CLI, which is completely hallucinated. It doesn't exist. And the goal was actually to develop using the Hugging Face platform. So having a look at this name, actually, you could think it's a legit one, especially if you want to develop using Hugging Face through the CLI. So you might think this one sounded legitimate and familiar, right? So the security researcher actually registered this package on the PyPy registry, and within 3 months, got 30,000 installs. So it's a good proof of concept of how hallucinated names could become a threat vectors. In this case, there were no malicious code pushed, just a simple proof of concept. And by the way, the real package, you have it at the here at the bottom of the slide. It was Hugging Face _ hub CLI. Yeah, if we compare, we could think that actually the photo was more legitimate and familiar. One of the issues also, I'm calling the people pleaser bias, but we've called it you're actually right, absolutely right. Yes, always. Everything that you're saying is great. So LMs are designed to provide satisfying, helpful responses as people pleasers by designs. There are a few settings that you could tweak to change the personality and also to have some of your guardrails. So here, this is an example with ChatGPT where you can change the personality to be either by default, cynic, robotic, good listener, a good nerd. So yeah, this is just a way to tweak the personality and also to add some threats if you want to have it more like a coder personality. Another limitation is the knowledge cutoff, and this one is an important one. So if you're not familiar with this concept, all of the current AI models, they do have a knowledge cutoff date. This is a point after which they don't have information. So in the security point of view, they will be unaware of the latest security vulnerabilities, the patches, the best practices. And also, AI models can gaslight you. So I do have an example with this one. So I use Gemini. I've coded an application, and I've used Gemini to prettify the front end. So I've asked Gemini can you give me a UI framework that I could use to prettify my application? It came back with Chakra. I was like, OK, let's go with Chakra. And I had a form in this application. And on my IDE, I had a lot of red squiggly lines on some of the components. So I'm like, well, those components on the form, because I was implementing a form, they don't exist. And then Gemini came back with this. So this is the thought response. So when you click on the little arrow, you have all of the thought process. And this is what he said. So acknowledge the user diligence in checking the documentation. Thanks, Gemini. Gently correct the user's interpretation, saying that actually those components exist, and actually give me a link to this URL, which I copy. Reassure me that they all exist, and ask if I can recheck the specific component documentation. So yes, Gemini, I did. 404, yeah. So here, there's an explanation for this one. Due to the cutoff date and the limited knowledge base is that I was looking at the documentation from version 3. As you can see here at the top, it was 3.19.1. And Gemini was actually mentioning version 2. So we had completely different discussions based on that. So if you want to know, if you're curious about the cutoff dates of all of these models, what you could do is actually go to each of their websites. So for example, if we say, if you're interested with Claude, you'd have all of their different models, and they will give you the cutoff dates for each. And for example, Gemini 3 Pro, they will also have this information here. You can see it here. And as I mentioned, also they're based in. Yeah, I'll just put it here. Yeah, so this is just to give an example of the knowledge cutoff dates. Let's go back to the horror stories. So people love those. So there are 2 interesting horror stories. The first one is this one. Actually, we are actually used to have the ID that could be used as a weapon, so weaponized ID from malicious actor. But this time is AI native ID. So this would be your cursor, windsurf, Claude Code, all of them. They're actually be used, leveraged, and weaponized. So here we have an example. This was last August. We had certain numbers of NX NPM packages. They were live, malicious one. They were live for 5 hours. So the attack was during the post-install scripts. They weaponized those AI CLI, so Claude, Gemini, with unsafe flags. They would say, yellow, trust all tools to inventory and exfiltrate secrets. So that's classic. Usually they will weaponize the ID to get all of the secrets, so they will have access to GitHub tokens, NPM credentials. Also, there's a lot around crypto wallets, leaks, and just to siphon your crypto wallet. Here, the lesson is that your AI native ID, so Cursor, Windsurf, and all of those, and this big family, can be turned into malware. So good practice is to disable the YOLO flags, especially if you're doing agentic AI. Just make sure to check what kind of packages you're actually downloading. Enforce the provenance of your packages and lock down your CI/CD. Another good example is the recent one from Anthropic, which happened in mid-September 2025. This one is a little bit fascinating, actually. So we had a suspected state-sponsored group that actually leveraged Claude Code to target around 30 organizations globally. So what happened here was that the AI handled 80 to 90% of the intrusion workflows. This is based on the cyber kill chain, basically automating pen testing. So here you can see the different steps. I recognize some of them. So reconnaissance, vulnerable discovery, exploitation, lateral movements, credential harvesting, data analysis, exfiltration operations. All of those operations were done by agents. And Anthropic kind of coined this trend, calling it vibe hacking. So this is when attackers will bypass the model guardrails by role-playing security testing and pen testing and chaining all of those we call benign tasks. So Anthropic obviously decided to ban the accounts, and they added multiple defensive enhancements just in response to this campaign. And here we're seeing actually a new form of vulnerabilities with agentic AI. This what we call a new frontier for threat actors. So they've actually released a really interesting report, 20-page reports on that, the attack lifecycle and AI integration, just to show you how they actually managed to automated all of this campaign. So as you would imagine, as a pen tester or security research would do, is start doing reconnaissance, and actually they're leveraging MCP servers. So here we have phase 1. This is the start with the recon, but on phase 2, they will use MCP server to perform actions. So everything around reconnaissance, trying to find vulnerabilities that could leverage. Every time at the end they had some sort of automated report, and a human would actually check the report to see if it was going down a nice route, and then we'll go to the next phase. And then when they find some vulnerabilities, they could use tools, also using MCP servers, to trigger this vulnerability and perform an attack against those organizations. And at the end, obviously, it will be lateral movements, exfiltrations of data, and all you can imagine. But all of that was automated. Well, mostly all of that was automated using agents. So here we have two good examples, like leveraging, weaponizing your ID, your new IDs, and weaponizing your agents as well. So let's have a look at the Secure by Design playbook now. And I'm going to change the lingo. I'm going to ditch vibe coding. I'm going to use the AI-assisted engineering, because this is supposedly what we're doing in enterprise if we're leveraging AI tools, because we do have guardrails, supposedly. So the first thing to have in mind is to change the mindset that we have to. So it's the classic trust but verify that you might already have if you're doing cybersecurity in your enterprise. But this is just to apply to AI, and consider that AI as a junior developer, and you should treat each pull request from like a junior developer. It's also important to have tool and processes in place as well to support that mindset. Also, a few concepts. The first one is prompt engineering. So you might be saying, Sonya, we know about prompt engineering. What's new about it? So we're talking about security. I'd like to emphasize that you could leverage prompt engineering with developing security-focused prompt templates. This would prioritize security coding practices. So here I give you an example. We'll create a user logging function that takes an email and password, checks if they match what's in the DB, and returns a success message or error. Do you think that's a good prompt? Well, I think that we could have a better prompt than this one. So this is just an example. Obviously, this prompt is really security focused. It doesn't integrate either things that you might have in engineering. But this is to give you an example that how you could enhance this prompt. So here you have create a user login function that takes the parameters, implement rate limiting, they use prioritize queries, they also follow OWASP authentication best practices. So all of the goodies that you could use. There's just a way to improve your prompts with security in mind. The second concept is context engineering. So all the LMs do have technical limitations. It also comes with major security implications. So all of the LMs are using tokens as the chunk of text that AI models process. And all of the current models, they all have limits around that. So if you want to also check not only the cutoff date, but the number of tokens that it could actually handle. So again, you can go on their website, and they usually also give you the context window. So for example, for Gemini, the context window is around 1 million, and they'll have a definition for the token also if you're curious. So for Gemini, they're using a token is equivalent about 4 characters, so 100 tokens is equal to about 60 to 80 English words. So this gives you a rule of thumb of how they're actually trained. And also one thing to keep in mind, because that's the same for human and engineers, imagine that complex application that would require broader context than those limits allow. You might think 1 million or 200, usually it's 200K, but 1 million could be enough. But imagine trying to understand your complex system of the full code base, but just looking at a few files at a time doesn't really work. So there are a few ways to also improve on that. And this also to come back to the context window, because maybe some of you find it a little bit blurry. How does it work? So this is an example with Claude Sonnet, but this is kind of the same with their newest models, because they do have this 200K context window. So on the left side, you would have the first turn. So you'd ask your question, your first prompt, and then you have the output text response. So this would be turn 1. Turn 2 will encapsulate your first turn and then the new question. And then you will get the new answer. And you'll see here that you can actually reach the context window of 200K. Well, depending on your question, but you can actually reach it quite fast. Imagine if you're adding tools, if you're actually enabling the extended thinking, so a little arrow then just to check to see their extended thinking. So all of that will allow you to hit the context window quite quick, also in a way. Third concept, spec-driven development. Wink, wink, Tessl. This is one of them. So for those of you who are not familiar with spec-driven development, so it's an approach where the team will author a structure specification of the system behavior through files. So you can start with the spec, not the code, and the spec will be your single source of truth for both human and AI agents. And this to ensure that you do have alignments and reduce ambiguous prompts. So because we're talking about security, this is actually a good opportunity to embed security in those rules and files. So you could embed security rules, data classification, access restriction, compliance check, everything that you can think about when you're coding, and you can include security rules. And make sure that those AI-generated components will respect them. In the tools that you're using, so I'm using Cursor in that example, but it doesn't matter, there's any AI native IDEs that you're using. So Cursor, just in definition, is a VS Code-based IDE with AI-powered code generation. You have semantic searches, you have smart rewrites, you have agentic workflow. Just to come back to the contexts, so those tools that can be used to actually improve on the context. So if you're targeting specific files, specific folders, you can have the relevant scope for the feature that you're working on. So you have scope project rules also with inclusion. So here in that case, this is Cursor rules, but all of the spec-driven developments also would be included in that. And you have security integration as well. So security tool, obviously, because we're talking about security. So all of these tools could be also used and implemented in AI native IDE using MCP. Who here is familiar with MCP? Okay, for those of you who with this term, so MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. This is a new protocol that has been created by Anthropic, so the team behind Claude. And MCP is a universal open standard that lets AI models call tools and query systems. So this could be documentation, your APIs, a database, via a consistent protocol. That's why we call it the AI USB-C. So it's one port to rule them all. And now we're having a new workflow. Well, we'd like to have this new automated remediation workflow. So again, you're still generating the code, so the LLM will draft the code. Then the LLM will self-review the code based on the rules, the security tools that you have implemented. It will auto-fix all of that. So 1, 2, 3, ideally, we'd like to have 1, 2, 3 automated. And then in step 4, we have the developer. This is where the human will actually look at the code, and if it's okay, it will merge the PR. This like your final gate. So if this is still a bit blurry, just do a quick demo on that. So here I've vibe coded. Just put it here. Oop, yeah. So here I've vibe coded a finance tracker application. This one, it was entirely vibe coded. So I didn't know if it was actually secure. So what I've decided is to run our Snyk MCP. So we could use, I can be agnostic here. It's just you could use any security tools, but here in our case, this is the Snyk MCP that I've installed. And usually what you could do, you can go on the landing page of the ID that you're using and have a look at their directory, and might have also some security tools, so you can leverage this. But here in this case, you can type Snyk. This is a free MCP if you want to scan your code. So here, the first thing that I did actually was to look manually. Well, manually, I was just chatting with the chatbot. I like to check this project with the scan. And they actually did it, so there's a little bit of authentication. Then they actually trigger the, I'm just gonna close the this one. So they actually trigger the software composition analysis to check the dependencies and then to check the code. So this is good, but this is not automated. It's still a little bit manual because you're actually prompting the chatbots. So what I wanted to do is actually leverage the rules that Cursor has. And I'm going to read it because this is a little bit too small. But one of the rules, and this you can improve on this rule, obviously, but this is just a POC. So if you add or change any code, make sure to run a code scan and then fix the resulting vulnerabilities. Once you're done fixing them, you can run another code to make sure they were actually fixed. And if they're not fixed, you can keep iterating until you have a fix that works. So I've implemented this rule. because it's a vibe-coded application, I've also asked Cursor to give me some ideas of new features that I could implement. So because it's a finance tracker application, so it came back with a few ideas. And I was like, okay, let's go with recurring transaction. Let's have a look what it looks like. So let me just find the proper one. Yeah, so this one. So at first, obviously, it's doing cursor things, so adding more around this specific feature, which is good. Okay, but this is not what I'm interested in. I just wanted to check if it actually triggered the security scan. So it's giving me a little bit of documentation. Okay, cool. And here, I didn't prompt it. It's just run it automatically because of the user rule. So now let me run security scan to check for any vulnerabilities in the newly added code, and did trigger the tools. So it's giving me a little bit of recap at the end, and also a security scan results, or apparently good news. I didn't implement any new security vulnerabilities. So this is just to show you how you could actually automate the kind of process. So ideally, you would like 1, 2, 3 to be automated, and then the last section would be the developer to approve and merge the PR. Another protocol, because we do have new protocols, that's a new agent-to-agent developed by Google. And this is more specifically for agent-based systems. And we know that there are a lot of challenges around agent-to-agent communication protocols and their security. So Google addressed one with a new protocol. Keep in mind some of those security considerations as well. Another tool that you could have is around AI bomb. So who's here is familiar with bomb first? Yeah, okay. AI bomb, new one? No? Okay, so AI bomb stands for AI bill of materials. This is a structured inventory of everything in your AI system. So everything around your models, your config, your training methods, licenses, data sets, and all of that. Usually AI bomb, this is used to enable transparency, visibility of what are the components that you have. So here in that case would be all of the AI components that you have, and also for regulatory compliance and risk mitigation. So this is an example with what we have with Sneak AI bombs. It's just to give you visibility of all of the potentially agent application data sets, library models, tools, all of your AI components that potentially you don't know about. This is just to give you a nice graph visually that you could see the landscape that you have in your organization. And you might be asking, Sonya, why are you talking about AI bomb? Well, that's because there's a new vulnerability as well, new risk, shadow AI. Who here is familiar with shadow AI? Yeah. So you might be familiar with shadow IT, but shadow AI is the AI flavor of shadow IT. So it's the unauthorized use of AI components in organizations. So let's say that in your organization, if you allow as a developer to use Cursor, but for some reason you're using Windsurf, that's shadow AI in a sense. So obviously, as you can imagine, it's kind of bypassed the established security controls. There's a risk of data leakage through prompts. Also a risk to copy-paste some PI, some customer data as well, and it can expand the organization attack surface. So last part of the horror stories. This time I have a few more stories. So the first one, you might have heard about that one also on Twitter, but the Replit AI that wiped the whole production DB. So what happened here? So we have Jason here, who was vibe coding with his team an application. And then by the end of the day, we rewrote code pages and made them much better. And then it deleted our production database. So here we have Replit that actually raised the production database by misinterpreting a prompt. Here's a bit more detail. So when he was prompting the Replit chatbot, he was asking how bad it is on a scale of 1 to 100. So Replit came back with, this is actually catastrophic. He can also give a number. Right? He's saying also, unfortunately, we can't roll back the database because it's kind of destructive schema operation. It dropped existing tables. There's no built-in rollback mechanism. At that time, they didn't have the rollback mechanism. Also, how this happened, so Replit actually said that I saw empty database queries. I panicked instead of thinking, which is good for AI panicked. I ignore your explicit no more changes without permission. I run destructive commands. I destroy months of your work in seconds. Well, the good thing you actually acknowledge at the end. what happened? So the post kind of trend on X, as you could imagine, and the CEO of Replit actually addressed this issue, came back with a solution. So they've implemented the rollback feature and other things just to prevent this kind of to happen again. And also good news for JSON, they managed to roll back all of their production DB, so it's good. Another horror story is the T-app leak. So this happened also this year. There was a legacy Firebase bucket, a certain number of images that were publicly exposed. So here, as you might imagine, the impact was around PII that was spread on forums. What happened was that the application was vibe coded and configured on default public storage. So you can imagine your S3 buckets just misconfigured. So without authentication and or encryption. This is also something to keep in mind. And finally, the vibe coding exposed the entire waitlist. So here we have another example of a vibe coded application. And what happened here is, if you were to go on this website and have the console, the developer console tool, if you were going on the network tab, you can refresh the page and you would have access to all of the waitlist. It was all emails that you could see on the front end in that example. So even if it's for staging or production, just make sure to have those checks, even if it's prototype UI. That's something really important. So let's have a look at the last part, the human and organizational factors. So the first one, let's talk about a little bit about governance. And here I'm talking about AI-assisted engineering, so it's not the vibe coding thing. So another governance action would recommend to have a policy catalog. This is to develop all of your AI coding policies that will clarify to all of your engineers and employees when and how AI tools can be used. Also make sure to maintain a list of approved tools and specific usage scenarios. This goes back to the shadow AI. Just make sure that you do have that visibility as well. Make sure to have specific training requirements for your developers. Just ensure that they do understand security implications when they're using these tools. And also, you can integrate AI governance within your existing secure development lifecycle rather than having it separately. And you do have a few frameworks. So this is just a couple of it. You have on the left side the AI Tourism technology function. And on the right side, you have the NIST AI risk management frameworks. But as I mentioned, there's a lot more frameworks, AI frameworks that also covering this topic. On the developer side, so we've talked about security and AI coding. Obviously, it depends on human oversight, and it will require specific skills. So the first one is to be able to read and debug AI-generated codes. Just make sure that what the AI-generated makes sense in the context of your code base. Recognize the people-pleasing, this is your rights bias, if the models agrees even when they're wrong. And all the things that I've mentioned, so everything around the knowledge cutoff, the context prompt engineering skills, the file rule inclusion, the spec-driven development, those are really good things that you could leverage and also apply security within those features. Obviously, having security tool embedded in pipeline, and as of just demo, if you're using MCP, leveraging those AI native IDE tools, you can have this new kind of workflow that makes it automated. Another thing is AI security champions. Who here are familiar with security champions, or did you have security champions in their company? Yes, okay. So that's the new flavor, it was like V2 of security champions. So if you're not familiar with this term, so security champions are developer advocates who ensure that, in that case, because they're AI, so the Gen AI codes, tools, and workflows that do meet security, compliance, and context engineering standards. So they act as the bridge between developers and the security team. So some of their responsibility, they should cover AI-generated code, enforce specs. So if you're doing spec-driven development, should monitor the guardrails. So when you're leveraging security tools, and also educate your peers. Obviously, this is not only done by your security champions. It should be supported also by the security team as well. Some of the qualities they should have, so they should have a good understanding of DevSecOps, should also have AI tool fluency, and also genuine interest for security as well. Makes the best security champions as well. And the outcome of this is to have faster adoption of your AI-assisted engineering. So fewer blind spots, lower tech depth that you could have with vibe coding, and enhanced security just in general. If you're interested with AI-enhanced security champions, I did write a white paper on the topic where you're following the journey of Jessica. She's a security engineer at a fictional company called Patch Corp, but she's tasked by her CISO to implement the security champions and the second version of security champions, so the AI security champions. So if you're interested, you can come back at the end. I'll just share the links with you. Okay, so to close, some takeaways and resources. So the key takeaways, we know that we're actually living in the middle of a fundamental shift using with all of these AI tools, new workflows, and all of that. So it's not just the tool, it's a kind of a paradigm. There's also security implications that require proactive management, and this is more, so I've ditched the vibe coding. So here I'm talking about more in the enterprise level. So it's both at technical and organization level. So we're also looking forward to have new governance frameworks. I know I did mention a few of them, but just looking if there's new governance frameworks that will also cover these topics. And the goal also is not to prevent using AI coding tools, it's just to better understand their limitations and how to leverage them properly, and also to make sure that you do have security guardrails also. Also, before closing, I wanted to share this post from Adi Osmani. So he shared from the vibe coding Reddit. And funnily enough, the vibe coding Reddit was created a week after Andrej Karpathy nailed coined the term. And this is if you're wondering how the big companies are actually using AI-assisted engineering. So this is the way. So here we have an example with an engineer sharing their experience. So as you can see, there's a lot of steps. So the first one is, obviously, as you can imagine, a technical design documents. There's a lot of discussions with different teams, focus on the full architecture, integrations with other teams. There's a lot of design discussions, more documentation on each subsystem. Then they go through the backlog development and sprint planning with their PMs. And then on step 5, they have software development. This is where they actually leverage AI power. So they do use test-driven developments. And they have the AI coding agent write the test first for the feature, and then they're building using the AI. And also, interesting enough, step 6 for code review, also they're leveraging AI in this step. So 2 steps for software development and the code submission review. The TLDR for this one is always start with a solid design doc and architecture. Maybe it goes back to spec-driven development. Wink, wink. And build from there in chunks, and always write tests first. I also wanted to close with Andrej Karpathy. So he actually coined the term. He also found that it's getting more and more difficult to actually create a web app in 2025 because there's a lot of components. So he decided to recreate a simple version of ChatGPT called NanoChat. And one of the questions was curious, how much did you write the code by hand of it? Or did you use vibe coding? Interesting enough, and Andrej Karpathy responded that actually, basically entirely handwritten. Just with potentially tab to complete, but he actually handwritten everything. He didn't really use vibe coding. So in that case, the interesting thing is to know when to use these tools, how to use these tools, and not just using these tools for the sake of using them. So I did create this resource hub where you can find everything that I've mentioned during this session. So I'll just leave it for a couple of seconds so you can take a screenshot for the URL. But basically, on this hub, what you could find, so you have everything around the classic security vulnerabilities, so hard-coded secrets, SQL injection, cross scripting, path reversal, and for each of them, it will redirect you to our free educational platform where, if you want to learn more about it, we do have a one-pager on each of these vulnerabilities, and also you can select your ecosystem as well. So this was for the classic vulnerabilities. We also have the new AI vulnerabilities that I've covered. So everything around supply chain, misinformation, sensitive information disclosure, excessive agency. We've seen the example with Anthropic. Let's carry on. What is MCP? If you didn't grasp all this concept, we do have a lot of tutorials on it, so videos and articles. Yep. And also I did create some more AI resources on agent-to-agents, shadow AI, and all of that. And the last one, I also wanted to do a shout out to Try Hack Me. This one. Yeah, I did create a couple of rooms on Try Hack Me. If you want to also have something a little bit more hands-on, there's a couple of rooms available. So you're also following Jessica, the same security agent, tasked by your CISO to implement security tools. And there, in these scenarios, the developers are using AI tools. So you'll follow this little scenario to see how we can improve on that. Cool. So I'm Sonya Moisset. I'm a staff AI security advocate at Snyk. If you are interested in AI and cybersecurity, you can follow me on LinkedIn at Sonya Moisset. You can connect. On that, I do write a lot around those topics: AI, cybersecurity, and DevSecOps. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you all for having me first, for listening. And if you have only one thing to remember, you can use whatever tools you want, but just make sure you do have security tools embedded in your pipeline, your workflow. Just make sure that you do have visibility on those vulnerabilities. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Sam, for an amazing talk. Right. I'm sure there will be questions, right? Okay. Questions? Yeah. See one?
Hi. So I think there are a lot of good AI tools for writing kind of like web applications. But for more like mobile, like native, like Android and iOS kind of applications, do you have any recommendations for good tools there?
I don't have any tool in mind, but if you're talking about AI native ideas, I would recommend you have a look at their landing pages. They do cover those languages, because I've mentioned that some of them are kind of skewed to specific programming languages. So if you're not using JavaScript, Python, Java, because for mobile, that would be more specific languages. So have a look at their landing page just to make sure that they do cover these languages, and you should probably have good results. But this also would be attached to the LM they're using. So not only the tools, but the LM. So I would say have a look at the benchmark for the different LMs, because some of them works best for mobile developments, better than for web applications. But yeah, have a look at both the tool and the LMs.
Thank you.
More questions? I'm from the audience. I have a question for Sonya. When you were showing the slide on the vibe coding, the Reddit thing,
yeah,
there's a very interesting thing that you talked about, because it said about writing tests first, right? Which we should. But as far as I know, a lot of developers actually using vibe coding to write tests. How wrong is that?
Well, I'd say if it does follow the guidance that you have in engineering, because you might have some guidelines and documentation how to do this. If actually you have the end results, if it's working, that's fine. Just make sure that you have human oversight at the end of the loop. Just make sure that what you've created does make sense.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Let me just quickly check. Oh yeah, there's a question at the back. 1 second.
Hi, thanks for the talk. Question about AI. Have you had any success on restricting people to one platform within a company, or any suggestions around this?
So restricting specific tools, do you mean?
Yeah, or basically having one specific tool that we promote and not letting people use other stuff, their personal preference.
Yeah, so this would be with your IT department and InfoSec departments. They'll potentially use different tools. So you have the tools that could be embedded to check what you're looking at your browser, what you navigate, and they would have like a blacklist. So if you're allowed to use some models and not other models, there are tools actually on this side just to see what kind of websites or applications you're using. This is more around like network filtering or those tools that usually InfoSec and IT departments will have. But this will be based on if you do have a center of excellence or a group in your company that if you are an engineering team, you'd like to use Cursor, let's say, you would bring the business case to it, and they will study and put it on your whitelist. It would be the workflow. So.
One more question.
Great chat. Do you know any tools that can simulate an AI attack that goes through and replicates it trying to get secrets and someone with permissions account being compromised? Is there any tooling similar to that? And
So I would recommend to have a look at the Entropic reports. So they leverage the Claude codes for that, but that's a good example of we could do it. I don't have specific names. I don't think this is a good avenue for running this, but yeah, no, I would strongly recommend you to have a look at the latest Entropic reports. There's a lot of really good information on this, like cyber kill chain with the different tools that there were agents they were using for this case. Yeah,
It can be used for simulation, right? Okay.
Yes, definitely.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much, Sonya.